Animal rights groups have been hard at work in an attempt to pass Bill C-355, which would ban the export of live horses for slaughter. The bill has been stalled in the Senate, prompting some Canadian celebrities to sign a letter demanding senators pass it. Singers Jann Arden and Brian May are among the signatories. Arden says tens of thousands of horses have been crammed into crates on airplanes and then later killed. Meanwhile, the Canadian Veterinary Medical Association originally said they don't support the bill as written, but based on the new evidence, they're now reevaluating their stance. Jann Arden joins me now from Calgary. Thank you so much for making the time. Good to see you.
Very happy to be here.
So, Jann, you have been a leading voice in calling for the passage of this bill. Tell me a little bit about what is behind that. What inspired you to take on this cause?
Long story short, a very good friend of mine, wonderful veterinarian, Judith Sampson French, she said, I need you to come to the Calgary airport. This was many, many years ago. And I said, what's up? She goes, well, they're shipping large draft horses out of the airport in wooden crates, like with netting over their head. They're foaming at the mouth. They don't want to get in. And they've been doing this for years, since 2003. So the exporters, mind you, in Canada have been doing it since 2003. And I was just shocked. I was just looking through this fence at these terrified horses being put into boxes, got very involved finding out what it was, why it was happening. And it's just basically a handful of exporters that make between $20 and $25 million a year, raising horses. They're purpose-bred horses in these feedlots, so they never really have any kind of life. And, you know, now they're ramping up these exports, but they go out by the thousands every year. Sometimes the mares are pregnant when they're sent over for slaughter. And just this year alone, 21 horses had died on these flights and that was just up until May of this year.
So I understand that this bill is currently before the Senate, as I said in the intro there.
Yes.
What challenges have you and your fellow advocates come up against?
Well, I mean, first of all, when Trudeau was campaigning, one of the promises that he made was to completely ban live horse export. So, you know, thousands and thousands and thousands of people voted in hopes that this would actually happen. It was mandated, and then it just got shuffled around. Nothing really came of it. We've been working on this almost 20 years. There's a group of people from the Canadian Horse Defense Coalition, and they've just been working on trying to stop these exports from going over. Canada is the last country in the world shipping live horses for food halfway around the world. So you can imagine these horses are in these crates, often surpassing the 28-hour limit that has been imposed by the Canadian government. They go over all the time. The safety regulations are just pushed aside all the time. The deaths are never reported. The injuries, you imagine during turbulence, these horses falling and going through the terror that they go through. We just would like to see it stop. This is the new world. Canadian agriculture should be leading the world. It shouldn't be lagging. Canada is consistently in the bottom of the G7 for animal welfare, which is shocking to thousands of Canadians. We just want to see it end. I mean, we've come this far. It went through the House of Commons, 2 readings. It's had the first reading in the Senate, and now here we sit. And I want to just say, every single Conservative member voted to keep this going. Without exception, every single Conservative member. So to me, this is a partisan issue. It's just a bunch of childish people, you know, doing some kind of a weird face-off.
Let me just ask you this finally, because I grew up in Calgary. I grew up around horses. You're from Calgary. You likely are around a lot of horses all the time. But for folks that may not have that same connection with horses, with all of the issues facing Canadians right now, why do you think this one in particular is one that people should focus on and they should prioritize?
Why? Nobody said prioritize and nobody said focus on. And the things that get, you know, set aside all the time. You can care about more than one thing at a time. You don't have to sit down and care about horses or care about the color red or care about the war, or you have to care about a lot of things. This is the world in which we live. It was a promise made by the Liberal government. It is in the Senate. And like I said, this has turned into a partisan argument. It's just petty. And these horses' lives, whether you've been around horses or not, You can't be all things. The Calgary Stampede prides itself on, having hundreds of horses march down the street, every July. This whole province is built on the back of horses. The West is built on the back of horses. But this is not part of the gross national product of Canada. This doesn't employ Canadians. There's not hundreds of people involved in this industry. This is 5 exporters that make, and they're taxed as farmers. They're not farmers. They're people that are monopolizing. This is a money grab with terrified animals. Nobody wants to see that. And the last thing I want to say is ask a 5-year-old. Ask a 5-year-old if that's something that seems like a good idea. That's the bar to which I hold everything. You think that's a good idea to eat horses raw and fly them across the country? This is climate change. This is the climate crisis. We've been asked to eat local. We've been asked to eat less meat. We've been asked to watch our carbon footprint. We've been asked all of these things. This is the antithesis of what people should be doing. And this is for wealthy people halfway around the world. And it's a niche business. It's like eating, something that's very taboo. We're not talking about what people eat. And this is where you go offside as well for me. Mm-hmm. It doesn't, people that eat horses, fine, great. Domestically, have at her, eat whatever you want. We have never, ever talked about what people eat, what they should eat. That's none of my business. But this is a step too far. Flying Canadian horses to Japan for wealthy people to eat raw. And the way they're slaughtered, don't ever look it up. And it's obviously not something you can talk about on the news. But this is a repugnant industry. It doesn't help anybody. You're only as good as the worst guy in your band. And this is a shard of Canadian agriculture that is absolutely vile, and it needs to be stopped.
Okay, Jann Arden, we got to leave it there for now, but we will follow this story and we will talk to you again as it develops. That is Jann Arden joining us from Calgary, Alberta.